I am Adrian Haverstadt, Director of Criminal Justice at Berkeley College. I'd like to speak with you a few moments about interpreting the Constitution. It's really anyone's guess how the Constitution will be interpreted these days, whether it be in the halls of Congress, the Oval Office, or in our nation's court system. However, a tried and true method has been through tradition. Interpretation of the Constitution by tradition does not mean holding to the same decisions that have been made in the past. Instead, it refers to holding on to the foundational questions and historical processes that guided our forefathers to their findings and conclusion. A process that involved conflict through endless discussions and arguments among leaders, both in the halls of Congress and throughout our court system. What gives life, longevity, and continuity to rightfully interpreting and applying the Constitution is not broad-scale conformity with everyone giving in or agreeing with the previous answers and conclusions. Instead, it is an agreement about the questions raised throughout the centuries that led to those conclusions. As far as our government goes today, we're living in a time of deep constitutional division. However, the simple fact that active deliberation occurs between our main political parties, well, that can be viewed as a good thing. The United States of America is a republic. As such, traditional lawmaking takes time and requires debate. The historical fundamentals that have guided our constitutional interpretation process must be identified. The current issues communicated from various perspectives, and then debated and argued until a bipartisan decision is reached. So consider this perspective in the future as your frustration builds while observing the bantering across the proverbial aisle and the slow decision-making processes of a conflicted Congress. It could be the sign of a healthy republic at work. In a democracy, oftentimes the majority rule and the decisions are often made in haste. When it comes to a democracy or a pure democratic process, haste makes waste if the constitutional rights of the majority are transgressed. The evil twin of a republic is a pure democratic process or form of government, especially when the prevailing winds blowing into the sail of that democratic process are wokeism and critical race theory. Neither one show respect for the traditional methods that established our nation's governmental authority and power. The denial of tradition when interpreting and creating law gives way to government overreach and freedom-busting legislation. Tyranny is tyranny, and history is our weapon. But at the same time, the tradition of constitutional interpretation that has guided our nation to this point will not maintain itself. It depends on citizens and lawmakers' commitment to study the history of law, understand the questions that guided the landmark debates, which ultimately led to bipartisan constitutional interpretations that govern our nation today, and a resolve to use the same structure in the future as we make decisions. Interpreting the Constitution cannot be influenced by the ebb and flow of cultural fads and emotional nuances. To maintain a strong republic, our nation must continue using the traditional principles of constitutional interpretation. We must recognize, whenever possible, the good faith of those whom we disagree, and resist the recurring temptation to use constitutional law as a weapon to impair those who hold opposing views, or to use it as a tool to advance our own political agenda. Hasty decisions and self-serving motivation fuel the engine of a democratic process gone awry. A republic, however, is methodical, God and people honoring, steeped in conversation, and seated with grace and patience. This is the American way. God bless America.